Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the International Men's Conference at the VFW St. Clair Shores. I would like to remind the audience that anyone sitting in this general area here will be subject or susceptible to being captured on camera. For those of you who wish to not be on camera, I would ask that you would refrain from this area. Also, if you do not want to be filmed or photographed, please let the media know and they will respect your wishes. At this point in time, I would like to have Paul Elam, the founder of AVFM, come up and welcome everyone. But before I have him come up, I also would like to ensure that the audience is aware our fundamental and most important part is that everyone is safe. We have security, and anyone that violates our rules and becomes intolerable, you will be ejected. Mr. Elam?
Interview recently. Oh, can you hear me now? Not yet. Hello? Hello?
What's up?
Closer to the mic. Closer to the mic. Yes.
There you go.
Just so you know, there we go. This is the discrimination that tall people face every day. But we have other problems to address first. I was asked a question yesterday or day before on the phone that if there was one thing in all the things that we address in terms of men's issues, boys' issues, if there was one thing that I had to pick as a top issue among all these things, from divorce courts to circumcision to what's happening in men in education to suicide to selective service and every other issue that we deal with, my answer was that this is the top issue, that we speak to all of them. And we have finally gotten to the point, after a lot of work, that we are going to speak to these issues. And we are not going to stop speaking to these issues. I must take one more moment before we commence. We're running late. Sorry, this is my first conference. So not everything is running perfectly, but it all is going to happen. But I want to take a moment. All this around you that you see, the venue change that we executed, all the audio-visual, all the ticketing, everything that went into this conference was a massive amount of work. Will you please join me in applause for the staff of volunteers at AVFM? I have never been so humbled in my life as I have been in the past month with the absolute dedication, working tirelessly, and I mean around the clock, by many people. They have done an amazing job, and I am so grateful. And with that, I just want to welcome you all to what I believe will be seen in retrospect as a new day in history in the way we discuss issues about men and women. And with that, welcome again, and I'll turn it back over to my friend Attila Benzer. Thank you.
At this point in time, we will be giving away different books throughout the day. The first book, Men on Strike. The lucky winner is ticket holder number 97. There you are. The next one is ticket holder number 87. Bachelor Pad Economics by Aaron Clary. 87. We'll hold your book. Our next speaker will be introduced by Honorable Roger Galloway. He was a former member of the House of Commons in Canada. Mr. Galloway.
Thank you, and good morning, all. It's a great pleasure for me to be in this position this morning to introduce my great friend, my best political friend, Ann Cools. Ann is a phenomenon. She was the founder of women's shelters in Canada in the 70s. In 1980, well, she's been a senator now for more than 30 years. In 84, she was called to the Senate by then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. So she's been around for a long time. When I got involved in politics in the late 80s, everybody knew of Ann Cools. She was, you know, your stereotypical Canadian politician. She was black, and she was a woman. A lot of those. In fact, Ann was such a phenomenon that an agency in Canada made a film about her, the National Film Board. That this woman who would run for the House of Commons, she never made it. She ran as a black woman in the richest riding in Canada. A social worker running where bankers live. Just didn't work for her. On Parliament Hill, Ann has made wonderful use of our time. You have to understand that in Canada, the Senate has its ups and downs in terms of the political viewpoint of the place. And I've always said that if everybody in the place was like Ann Cools, there'd never be a problem with the Senate. Ann is held in great regard in Canada. So let me put myself in perspective to Ann. In 1993, I arrived on Parliament Hill. I knew of her. Most of us knew of her. Many of us knew of her. And yes, she was in the same caucus. We met. We used to talk. And of course, in 1995 in Canada, the wave of feminism was creeping through the House of Commons. And there was a bill that was presented about men and divorce and payment. And Ann, a then Liberal senator and a Conservative senator now deceased by the name of Duncan Jessamine, went to work and resisted it when it got to the Senate. And out of this came this compromise that a committee would be constituted of both the House of Commons and the Senate. Now, these are very peculiar beasts in our parliamentary system. And for some reason, I was chosen as the House of Commons chair of that committee. I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into. Now, I was chosen because I'm a man, I'm a lawyer, and I wasn't divorced. Sounds like not the correct criteria, but that's the way it worked. And that's when I got up close with Ann. We had hearings across Canada. We traveled for months and months across Canada. And let me tell you, these were the largest parliamentary hearings ever held in terms of the number of people who turned out. We were in Toronto at the Royal York Hotel, one of the grand old hotels of Canada. 550 people show up for a parliamentary committee hearing. This is unprecedented. We had to call in the RCMP, you know, the guys in the red suits. We had to call them in to police the place. It was pandemonium. And it was the first real working week of that committee. And I saw Ann in action. I met people, and my perspective very quickly changed, because when you meet men, crying in the hallways, telling you their stories about how they've been shuttled out of the lives of their children, shuttled out of their homes, and shuttled into destitution. You got some very quick attitude adjustment, perspective on what was happening. And Anne was the central draw. Wherever we went, there were large crowds of men waiting to see her. She, if I could put it this way, she was the rock star of the committee. People would come and want to have, there'd be 40 guys turn up and want to have breakfast with Anne. She is a phenomenon in terms of this legitimacy because she, in fact, makes an intellectual argument as opposed to an emotional argument. Now, at that same time, I liken it to somewhat the Prague Spring, in the sense that newspapers were very open about what was happening, and they were very sympathetic to our committee. And, more importantly, polls were showing that more than 90% of Canadians were in favor of change to make it fairer for men. They understood, they didn't know all the details, but they understood something was fundamentally wrong with the system. And at the end of 1998, I happened to present to the House of Commons the final report of the committee. And it recommended some very revolutionary ideas, such as shared parenting. It recommended that if you're going to allege domestic violence, you better be prepared to prove it. And, of course, none of this has come in Canada to fruition. Here I am, 16 years later, and nothing has changed in Canada. In fact, if anything, it's backed up. But the one constant in all of this is Ann Cools. Here we are, 16 years later, Ann. Older too, yes, yes. Yeah. Your hair is gray, I still don't have any, yes. Here we are 16 years later in the center of North America, I like to think of it as being, talking about the same things. But I detect that there's more determination. I detect there's a greater perspective. And I detect that Ann Cools has something important to say this morning. So it gives me great pleasure to join with you this morning in welcoming my friend, and I think our friend, Senator Ann Cools.